You are listening to WRUULP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with a global soul. Our theme music is a clip of Summer Nights by the Eric Jones Trio. It's provided by our friend Mark Chesanout, who plays with the Eric Jones Trio every Thursday and Sunday at Good Times Jazz Bar downtown.
Hey, welcome to Arts on the Air. This is Tamara Garvey, and I have the pleasure of sitting down with Mary Hartman today. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you, Tamara. Good to be here.
So glad to be with you, and we are, just to set the scene, we're in Mary's studio, which is a very cool upstairs in a building on M.F.A. We'll talk about your studio later, because I know that's informing a lot of your practice, but we're just in this beautiful, big, empty, kind of raw-looking space. It's very Savannah. So, Mary, I'll get started talking about your work, and just the look of your art is so different from everybody else in town, because most people are clearly painting, and yours are very drawing informed. And much of Mary's work is with vine and compressed charcoal and pastel and acrylic wash. And then I saw on your website you work with either hot pressed watercolor paper and also canvas and panel. Okay, I'm going to read a little bit of your statement. Your work is involved with texture and memory. I try to keep in mind and in hand principles of movement and economy, speed and light, and appreciate the interplay between illusory and non-illusory space and form. So for people who have not seen Mary's work yet, which please go look it up, but it's very drawing based, and you do a lot of horses and steer and wild animals, but also a lot of still lifes like cast iron pans and anvils, which I want to talk to you about, and then you also have a whole thriving portrait aspect to your business, or to your artwork. But your work is it looks very sculptural with the charcoal. You can tell what the forms are, but there's so much abstraction in it, and it really looks like you're like carving out space. It looks like all of your things that you depict, they look so three-dimensional. It's really amazing.
Tamara, really? Oh gosh. That's what I'm after.
That's what you're going for.
And I'm thinking, often it just looks quite flat to me, so to hear you say that's great.
No, I'm looking right up now where you have this series where you have these like very big, hefty cats lying on their side, and you just feel how heavy the cat is. You feel the fur looks depicted. It's really incredible. I mean, the way you do it. I remember from like my early SCAD classes when we were working in charcoal, and I think that the fact also that you work in charcoal, I keep harping on this, but I feel like for most people it's like something you remember about your early art training, and then you kind of never go back to it again. You sort of associate it with like learning to draw. Mm-hmm. And so I love that your finished works are in charcoal, and they're so beautiful and finished looking, and it makes me want to get back into it. But
thank you. It's fun material.
You must have so much fun. Your hands must get so filthy.
Yeah, oh for sure. And I'm thinking of, I'm from West Virginia, and I think it's sort of, it's a sick joke, but black lung, like with charcoal.
Yeah.
I've been
You're
standing
carrying
at the
on
easel for decades.
Gosh.
And I sometimes get a little in my ear.
In your ears. Are you imagining at the end of the night just clean it under your fingernails, just blackened all the time?
It's a good dirty, sure.
Is that consciously or subconsciously, is there a West Virginia connection to you where you like the physicality of it?
There isn't, and I haven't made my own charcoal. A lot of people have done that, and I've been gifted some, and that's really nice. So I need a wood pile.
Oh, some homemade charcoal? Mm-hmm. How do people make that?
Christine Sachecki gave me some, and it's a twig that she roasted,
okay.
I suppose. I don't quite know. But it's, I tend to go to Blick.
Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to just get into with your art, like I touched on. You have a whole series of horses and steer and moose, which is kind of what I knew you from, but you do a lot of still lifes, like these cast iron pans that are really good with the heft, and then just the blackness of them. And then you do some anvils, which I was curious about. What is the significance of that?
I think it's a formal interest, and I like diagonals. And I did do a series of anvils thinking about, this was a show in 2014 at Spare Time. Do you remember Spare Time?
Where was that gallery?
It was a restaurant and bar and terrific spot at the west side of Congress.
Okay.
M.F.A. and Congress. And I had a studio upstairs from there for a while on the third floor and shared with some folks. And they invited me to have a show. Clara and Jane invited me to have show, and it was a period of transition, not to get too heavy, but I was thinking about weights and relief of weight and what's heavy and what isn't, what getting out from under something a little bit.
Yeah.
And an anvil suggested itself to me. It's pretty
it's kind of a funny object. People don't usually see them in real life ever.
Right. My brother has one, and my now husband has one.
Really? Why do they have them?
Well, also my cousin is a blacksmith, and he has one.
Ah.
Andy, my husband, has one for fabricating car parts.
Okay.
And it's maybe somewhat obvious or a facile symbol, but I was just thinking about heaviness and lightness. And
You were in a transition period.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you had this working anvil in your life that you could look at.
Yeah, I suppose. And mostly I used photographs at that point, and sourcing on the internet, you know. And I like it when it's pivoted.
Yeah, a lot of your work, the diagonal is a big thing for yours. You tend to, I'm looking around your room, a lot of them are like in the upper left corner going down to the lower right corner. That's the direction you're more comfortable with? You
know, I find that I like that top third for a still life, and then it sort of trails down. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do you do, when you're planning out your pieces, how much compositional thinking and laying out and doing compositional shapes do you work on?
Do you know, I don't plan enough, and I don't do enough studies, and I'm learning. I've been taking some online classes during the pandemic and just learning the value of planning something out, and color studies, and color is something I've never much reckoned with, but now I do. And to be mindful of it, I think I'm impulsive. I just get started.
Do you?
Typically.
So when you start with a piece, do you just start with the vine charcoal? You sketch it that way?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then sometimes I throw caution to the wind to just lay some massive tone or color. With portraits on that laid paper with the finish that's terrific for charcoal, I often start with a kind of a rub out of just tone, a mid-tone.
Okay. Do you, so the pieces of the cats, you're usually working from photos, you said?
Yeah.
Does it take you like a bunch of tries to get one that you like, or do you have the paper and you just start going for it and you can just go?
I think I just go.
Yeah?
It doesn't mean I'll like it, but yeah.
What do you use to erase?
My hands, this part of my fist.
Back of your hand?
Chamois.
Okay.
And sometimes paintbrushes. And I took a class where I learned that the bristle will take off a little, and a finer brush will take off a lot. So.
Oh, interesting.
Nathan C. I took an online class with him, and what else? Kneaded eraser for sure. And then,
I was gonna ask about the kneaded eraser. Mm-hmm. I love those. Just playing with them.
I just do a lot of drawing with the eraser.
They smell so funny.
I know.
Kneaded erasers. I remember in classes they always told us not to use our fingertips to erase because they're kind of oily. And is that a thing? Is that why you use the back of your hand?
Well, I think it's impulsive. I think it's.
Yeah.
I could say intuitive and dress it up, but maybe impulsive is really the word. But the oil, I haven't worried too much about archival stuff.
Okay.
That way.
How do you decide? So you work on paper and also canvas and panel. I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the size of your finished pieces, because I've had this conversation with other artists who work on paper, is that at the end then you have to frame it with the glass, and then getting to be a certain size is always problematic just because the expense of it and shipping and the heft of it or something.
Sure.
How do you work out what surface you're going to work on?
In graduate school, I worked almost exclusively on paper and large, and it was plexi.
Okay.
Plexiglass.
Yeah, once it's a certain size, it's not going to be glass, it's going to be plexi. Mm-hmm. So what was large to you? What were you working on?
60 by 44.
That's really big.
Mm-hmm.
Do you pin the paper to the wall, basically, and work on it?
Staple. I mistreat the edges.
Yeah.
I'm the worst. Yeah. I don't.
Would you have it on the floor, like
Sure.
crawling around on it? Okay.
Oh, yeah. When I was younger.
Yeah.
I think, sometimes on wood stain panels, working on it, really have to turn it and be all around it and stand on top of it and be on my knees.
Oh yeah.
And that's harder and harder.
Must be fun with the wood. I mean, that you can just beat it up so much more.
Sure.
Yeah. So you were at SCAD, you got your M.F.A. in painting, I assume. When you arrived for your graduate degree, were you already working in this way, like the charcoal and pastels, or?
Do you know, I was an art history major in undergraduate school. I had almost no portfolio. And I think I'd been to some workshops with my mother, who's a painter. And the medium was charcoal, was vine charcoal.
Okay.
Figure drawing workshops.
So it was kind of like what you had learned, basically.
What I had learned and what was already feeling pretty good to me. So I did have some drawings, and they let me in.
What year was that? What year did you start?
95.
Okay.
And I took some provisional classes, oil painting, and color theory. And then I was in graduate school, and it was nuts because I didn't know what I was doing.
95, wow. Was that in Alexander Hall back then?
No, it was in Orleans Hall.
Where is that?
It's the gym, I think.
Okay. Did you have a studio since you were in grad school? Okay.
I had great professors. Erling Schavold was one. Martha McLeish was one. Learned a lot from Denise Falk.
Yeah, I remember her.
And Raphael DeLuzio. Yeah.
Were you one of the only ones who was doing more drawing as opposed to painting?
Yeah, I'm pretty much the only one.
You're always
doing anything quasi even representational.
Oh, really?
Well, shouldn't say that, but my work is kind of quaint. It is. There's this quaintness I don't necessarily intend, but I suppose the objects that suggest themselves to me are, in a way, derivative. I don't know.
Were the other people in your graduate program, they were doing kind of just abstract paintings, big, splashy kind of?
Yes, and big focus on process and materials, and a lot of. And I remember I went to go get some tar because I thought I got to use something.
Wow.
To use something inventive, because everybody around me, a lot of reacting and a lot of worrying about this and that, and not focused on just accepting this is what I'd like to do. So I'll do it.
You felt a little pressured to like push your materials and be more out there.
And it wasn't a bad thing. I made some tar drawings.
Yeah, how did the tar behave?
It was awful. It was wooden spread, of course, and
wow, you were trying to push it with a paintbrush. Must have smelled great.
Yeah, I was not popular.
You were just getting everybody high.
That's right.
So you had these like hardened tar painting sculptures
mixed with acrylic, and I have some of them still in flat files, and they just they weren't a bad experiment, really.
It's so funny.
It was kind of...
Yeah.
I'm glad I did them.
So you went through grad school. When that was the reason you moved to Savannah, basically, from West Virginia? What was your first impression of Savannah? What did you like to do?
Well, geez.
It was so much less touristy then.
So much less. I think the book had just come out.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And that was really the only...
You were here like the very beginning of that era.
That was the only... tourism kind of push. I think the trolleys had not been in operation very long.
Wow. And like the horse carriage, just all that was really new.
Seemed new and sparse. And this town was so, everybody laments, but it really was. It felt discoverable, and I was so lucky.
Really gritty.
To be here and be in school and not having to do, be at a job, or I could just really discover.
Yeah, it's just so affordable. I mean, the other interesting thing I feel like for that era of Savannah was that SCAD was like it wasn't even nearly as huge as it is now, but that would have been like the controversial thing downtown of like all these art students wandering around because people weren't yet upset about, boutique hotels and tourism. So like you guys were this incoming factor that the longtime Savannahans would be
maybe
reacting to,
particularly the undergraduate students, I think.
Okay.
Got a little.
Where did you live? Were you downtown?
Oh man,
you live in all the most amazing places back then, right? I've talked to other people who, like Angela Burson, lived on Jones Street.
Yeah,
and she's here.
Easy.
Yeah.
Easy. I think I went to Home Finders, and there was this paper called The Guardian, and there would be 5 apartments listed. It was just very easy, and I wound up at 19 West Gordon Street.
Wow, Gordon Street, yeah.
Apartment, furnished efficiency with indoor shutters and this precious kitchen, and yeah, it was absurd. It
Were
was
you?
really nice.
Is that really close to the Mercer house?
Very.
I actually I had a little period where I think I lived just a few doors down from you. I had a small period where I lived with somebody on Gordon Street too. That's so funny.
I used to see really people, women hitching up their skirts basically to maybe scale the wall. I mean, it was a big. Remember the book? Well, you weren't here then.
I wasn't here. No, I mean, yeah, when I first got here it was 2005, so it was touristy here, but not nearly to the extent of, parking wasn't a huge issue, and bachelorettes were not a thing at all.
That's right.
Wow, are there any like bars or restaurants that you remember going to back then that are still around? There's some things that last a really long time, right?
I
There's a few
practically
things.
got my mail at Pinky Masters.
Oh, that was your place?
That was definitely our place. Alex Hinson was another grad student, and he introduced me to it, and I was a faithful devotee.
So when you were in grad school, I imagine you guys are painting, and then you're just going out at night drinking, or maybe you're painting. Yeah. Were you painting all night? What was your?
All the above.
Yeah.
And plenty of boozing in the studios.
Yeah.
There weren't really rules. We barely had plumbing in that place, basically. So.
Amazing. Mm-hmm. So when you were in grad school, what were you imagining your life was going to be after? Like, what did you think your career would be like? What did you want?
A really good and scary question, and I'm ashamed to admit I wasn't thinking future too much. I really wasn't.
Or you were just in art school getting their painting M.F.A.
It's so terrible. Yeah.
Okay, so what happened after you graduated?
People, I think, I'm sure were.
Really? So when you graduated, it was like 97-ish, 98?
98.
And what happened then?
What happened then is I got a job in a hotel.
Yeah?
Yeah. And was in the service industry in some form, or hospitality for many years.
For many years. Were you still working on your painting in your off time, or did you take a break?
I was, and I had shows. I had a studio in my next apartment, which was on Bolton Street. Used one of the bedrooms, and I had shows at Gallery Espresso, Cafe Metropole.
Yeah, that's been Gallery Espresso, amazing, so long.
Yeah, a bunch of shows there. They were very good to me. Starland, the first incarnation of Gallery 28, it was called.
There used to be in that DeSoto row, I remember, like different gallery. There was a woman who had a frame shop for a really long time in there, and there were little galleries. And it was the type where like a SCAD students, you could rent it for a week and do a show. And it was like the first Fridays was sort of starting to be a thing in Starland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This was just one house at the before the Starlander was cafe, and Marcus Kenny was organizing shows there.
Oh yeah.
I got to be part of a drawing show and have my own show.
Were you and he in school at the same time, or?
No, he was in photo, I think, and
that's right.
I was in painting, but I met him through Preston Orr.
Okay. So there's this whole this very long time guard of you here in Savannah since the 90s.
I don't know if I count myself, but definitely loitering in this town for a while.
Okay. So you worked in hospitality, and then how many years did that go on for? Just
9.
until like yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, I think about 9, and sometimes part-time, sometimes full-time. Just in and out. But that was a valuable thing. I learned to work well with others, etc.
That was also, it's before being able to sell things online.
Mm-hmm.
It was really before like Etsy and just things like that. I think when I graduated from SCAD in 2008, I set up an Etsy shop, and Etsy was pretty new, and there weren't tons of people on it, and you could get your Etsy shop rolling.
Is that
but
right?
I'm trying to imagine for you, in the early 2000s, just what the possibilities were to sell art, especially before it was super touristy here.
Cindy Szynski had me draw her children. She's an art broker in town.
Okay.
And I did get some referrals from that project. So I remember that very well. I said, I don't know if I trust myself. I'll try.
Yeah.
She said, just try. And then a few commissions came in that way.
Yeah.
And some pretty decent sales from shows.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And then, so it's coming up to modern-ish time. So this studio that we're in right now, you said what year did you first moved into this studio?
It was 13, I think.
2013, okay. Were you, and do you do your art full time now?
I do.
Yeah?
Yeah, I do, and hence I have debt. It's been all right. I've been able to come out black sometimes.
Okay.
And expense things. I mean, no one's after me yet, but I was for a long time thankful to be at Kobo Gallery, and that was good for getting my work sold.
Yeah, what years were you there for?
That was 14 to 21.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And Kobo has probably been around since like, is it like 2010, something like that?
I think
It's
so.
a long running gallery, yeah.
It's one of the, I think if not the oldest co-op, one of them.
Yeah. Did you, so your work is very different there as well. Did you feel pressure ever, like you needed to do some kind of specific Savannah depictions to sell there? Or?
I didn't, and I haven't, although in graduate school I started with this horse thing that was really a symbol for my father. And it really stuck around.
Yeah, just the shapes of the horses really meant something to you?
Well, it was this odd thing where my brother's a farmer, organic farmer. He has draft horses. And he grows sorghum and makes molasses. And he had, it was a mule actually, who had a type of cancer. My father had cancer. They were both called Jack.
Wow.
And it seemed prophetic, and I think I tortured it into this symbol, and then it just became a horse. They got horseier. They used to be kind of humanoid, and they got horseier, and people were buying them.
Yeah.
And there it went.
And that was working from photos?
Photos, and I would try to be a little deliberate, like take my own photos.
Yeah,
least.
I wanted to ask about that.
His farm plenty, and went to Wicklow stables a couple times, took pictures of them turning out the horses, and
oh yeah,
those are always better than say Google image. I mean, it just, you're more connected, obviously.
Yes.
So.
And it's funny the you just said that like you would take the photo at the moment that they're turning the horses out to the pasture, because yeah, a lot of your images of horses, they're really in motion and they're like twisting and they're going. And so I wanted to ask like if somebody just happened to be managing to grab good photos of them for you. But yeah, you're getting them at the moment that they're so excited and they're taking off.
Allie Krebs invited me to come when she turned them out, and I love that phrase.
Yeah.
And it was more early morning.
It's so evocative. It's like for people who have pets, it's like the equivalent of the zoomies.
Sure.
Like when your cat and your dog, it's like the zoomies for the horse, right?
They do.
They go free.
They prance around. They're full of themselves.
Yeah. And like depending on if they're facing you, when you let them go, then they have to turn to run away.
It sounds like you know horses probably better than
I do know horses a little bit, yeah. I actually have a volunteering thing I do at this miniature horse farm in Southside.
Is that right?
I do. So I'm kind of even now around miniature horses and a donkey. I love the donkey is so weird.
Yeah. I expect they're very smart.
Yeah.
And they're bred with horses to make a mule for the horse's strength and the donkey's smarts. I think.
Maybe you should come out to this place and take some photos.
I would
It
love
be really
that.
cool.
Yeah.
The thing that's
Do a miniature
interesting.
series.
Yeah, and I've learned. I grew up, I sort of knew about horses, but I never had been around a donkey, and just being around it and seeing it face to face, it's so interesting, like the like structure of the donkey, because they have this very big, when you look at it from the front, they have this enormous stomach that sticks out,
Sure.
and it looks like they're pregnant, but that's just like the way that a donkey's belly is. It's super interesting. And they're very like standoffish, and they have to watch you for a while and trust you before they will let you get near them and pet them and stuff, and they really like stand back and observe things.
Is that right?
It's so interesting. They're so wild. I'm really fascinated by the donkey.
I expect.
Yeah. So that makes sense. So at Kobo, your pieces of horses were selling well. Yeah.
They were.
When you get commissions from people of portraits, also your portrait work, they also look very sculptural, like you're carving them.
That is really fantastic to hear, and I didn't think that was quite true, so thank you. I'm really, during the pandemic, I got to take some like classical drawing and foundations and painting classes through Grand Central Atelier
Okay.
in New York, and great instructors. And I really have not been, I haven't scrutinized 3D much, and I'm really kind of trying to render form.
Yeah, I think it really, I mean,
These days.
I feel like you really see it in the big objects, like your really hefty cats and the horses and the people. But when you get commissions for people, I know you said that in your early on career, you felt really hesitant getting this commission from someone, and she had to kind of like talk you through it. Is there just the nerves of like showing the finished piece to someone, what they're going to think? How does that get easier?
That is not as hard for me as the starting. The starting is deadly, and it's so constant and true that it's really a process for me to just make myself get started.
Yeah, I find that too.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the blank piece is horrendous.
Any creative field, I imagine. Yeah.
Do you think, this is sort of just occurring to me, but since you work in charcoal, a lot of your work is on toned paper, so it's not literally white. Do you feel like that psychologically makes it easier to start and make that first mark?
I think that's the whole reason for laying down the tone field. And
yeah.
I think that's a convention to help artists get started.
Maybe I should start doing that. I hate staring at the white object.
You use your space so well, though, all the negative space.
Oh, thank you. So what balance at this point of your work is just things that you are desiring to do, whether working for a show or not, versus like commissioned work?
You know, that's funny because I'm trying to put together a show, and different things have held it up. I was in West Virginia for a lot of last year with my mother, who's better, but had some stuff, and I think I might call it Decommissioned because I'm taking a step back from commission work to see what it is I want to do.
Okay.
Or it's hard to know when. I mean, I sometimes have felt I'm grateful for every commission I've ever had, but it can be paralyzing, and I don't know. You know, I'm in that mindset of doing the job instead of.
Yeah, yeah. So since ending at Kobo, it's been a lot of commissioned work for you?
Not a lot, but some.
Okay.
I just said, thanks to Arthur Cowenhoven. I hope he gets to know you. I had two pretty large ones just go to the frame shop.
Yeah.
So they're off my desk.
How closely do you like to work with the frame shop finishing your pieces?
You know, I have such respect for what it can do. The choice of frame.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's vast, the possibilities.
It absolutely is, and you can go so wrong. And I like a second opinion with framing for sure.
Yeah.
And I'd say Atwell's is the one I've worked most closely with, and also Carol at Islands Framing.
Okay.
So it's definitely a part of it, though commissioners tend to frame their own work, their own. I give it to them flat.
Do you have to, these pieces are charcoal on paper?
The portraits.
Do they have to do something special? I always felt like during school, if you were doing pastel or charcoal, that when you framed it, there has to be something like to set the paper like away from the mat and then also away from the glass as well, because charcoal dust might fall down at the bottom and settle.
Oh yeah, it's
what do they do?
And then spacers in front of, as I understand it, in front of the image or mat, and I like to float things.
So you see the edge of the paper.
If it's a good edge.
And then you also kind of have to you can't ever set a piece down too hard, right? Because dust could just fall off it and then settle at the bottom. There's a whole thing, right?
Well, I think more virtuous artists don't spray their work, but I do.
You do? Okay.
Typically.
No, I wanted to ask about that too.
Yeah.
Workable fixative, final fixative, what do you like?
I've finally learned to just invest in the Sennelier good stuff.
Okay. That's the nicest French brand, right?
It's pretty great, and the mist is really fun. I've used Aquanet. I've used everything.
Oh, you literally hairspray? Yeah. That seems like a very student thing. So are you using Sennelier pastels as well? That's the best.
I have some, but
yeah.
The pastel work is really infrequent these days. So.
Okay. Okay, well, this is this is a good time. We're going to take a little break.
Yeah.
Again, everyone, I'm here with Mary Hartman, wonderful local charcoal and pastel and wash artist, and we are going to take a little station break, and we'll be back.
You are listening to WRUULP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with a global soul.
Trees are one of Chatham County's most treasured natural resources. Beyond their beauty and cultural significance, the impact of trees are far-reaching and compounding, spanning from economic benefits to health improvements to climate change resilience. Trees are woven into every aspect of our lives. Savannah Tree Foundation protects and grows Chatham County's urban forest through tree planting, community engagement, and advocacy. More information is available at savannahtree.org. This portion of WRUU's programming is brought to you by listeners and by Brighter Day Natural Foods. Brighter Day Natural Foods has been serving Savannah's healthy food and supplement needs since 1978. It is located at the corner of Bull Street and Park Avenue. They have online ordering and curbside delivery available, and now a walk-up window for smoothies, juices, and sandwiches from the deli. They are open from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sunday. More information can be found at brighterdayfoods.com.
What does it mean when we say that WRUU is a community radio station? It doesn't just mean that we invite the community to create programming, and it doesn't just mean that we're a voice for the community. It also means that we're counting on the community to keep us going, and you are the community. Almost all of our modest budget comes from small annual or monthly donations from listeners like you. You get to enjoy our community-focused programming because many others have stepped forward to do their part. Now do your part by joining our community of listener donors. Go to WRUU.org right now and make a one-time or monthly donation. And thank you for supporting Savannah's community radio station, 107.5 FM.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Arts on the Air. This is Tamara Garvey, and I'm here with local artist Mary Hartman. Welcome back, Mary.
Thank you.
And before we went on the break, let's see, we'd been talking about, you touched on that during the pandemic, you started getting really into doing online classes. Mm-hmm. And so I know, so you were in grad school in the mid-90s, so I imagine it had been like a very long time since you'd had any kind of formal instruction.
Very long.
Did you kind of get to a point where you just felt like you just were ready for somebody else's input into your work and you wanted to just be like zhuzhed a little bit, like pushed?
Oh, I did. And it's Instagram, truly.
Oh.
I just found some artists who are working in a way that excites me, and it's to get excited about realism is maybe doesn't sound so evolved, but I am, and it is, and that's not unevolved. Scratch that. I don't know, but the work that I got to see and really appreciated had this solidity to it and volume and things I just didn't feel like I was able to translate.
Okay,
yet. And,
interesting.
I signed up for an in-person workshop with this fantastic artist named Colleen Berry, and she's a director of drawing at Grand Central Atelier in New York, and I was going to go, and the pandemic hit, so
wow.
It was canceled, and then a lot of online opportunities started happening.
Did she have one online? Did you end up learning with her?
I wasn't able to take a class with her. I was able to get a little critique with her.
Okay.
And man, that was informative. Was
it harsh?
I sat 20 minutes or half an hour, I think, at that table.
Yeah.
And she just discussed things like form logic and conceptual turning of form, and I had simply never understood that or known of that.
Which of your pieces was she looking at when she was critiquing?
Portraits and some figures, and I think some horses. It's just a smattering, really. And
so those are the elements that she thought would really push you to a new level, is really looking at form and the heft of things.
Mm-hmm. And I just am not accustomed to really scrutinizing something, and I want to do that. And I love the situation where the illusion falls apart. And so to do that, I need to know the rules, or I need to study up
Yeah.
and really practice.
Were there
So-
things about your materials that she was encouraging you to change up?
Oh, not change.
Or
I
to
think she mentioned
use
the
differently?
line, was advantageous, and it was just a general kind of launching pad. And then I took some other classes with instructors. Ananda Featherston was one that just blew my mind.
Okay. Is it all
The
people who work
science
in...
behind painting and science behind observation and light
Oh,
and how it falls and what it does and photons, and
wow.
I just really appreciated all that.
Yeah, I didn't know if everybody you learned from was drawing, but she was painting, this other person. So it was
Both.
like going to different people for different aspects.
I have been doing this kind of a la carte curriculum, which may or may not be a great service to me, but I have just been so excited, and that's worth everything.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
Well, how long have you been working in color at all? Like either pastel or
But,
kind of
since
washes?
taking introduction to color. Oh, I'm going to fail to remember the name of the class, but it was hardcore. Just here's the color wheel, here's a Munsell chart, and our first.
But this is like within the last few years?
Yeah.
Okay.
2020, and our first assignment was simply to I went to a paint store and matched these, and it was
Yellow
really
squares?
hard and really challenging and really exciting. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, I was going to ask you, I kind of couldn't remember how far back I started seeing you having any artwork that had any color in it at all. So you've had decades where you were just working with like toned paper and shades of gray and black and white.
Black and white.
So you kind of could escape thinking about color and color theory for decades.
It was purposeful,
right?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And then one day you were like, I just want to open up this entire new other wild field.
Well, I was afraid of color and afraid of oil, too. So
Yeah.
it felt like a good discipline-y thing to try and learn about.
Did you ever, I mean, over the years when people would commission you to do work, did they always just like accept the fact that it was going to be in black and white, or would people always be trying to encourage you to do color?
You know, I would just say, I don't trust myself with color. I think
Okay.
it'll be charcoal usually.
So something about the pandemic made you like, you were ready for learning and
Well,
trying all these
taking
different
one
things?
class made me want to take more.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. Oh, so you just really got into the learning part of it.
That and thinking about a different way to practice, because in the studio, you know, searching photos, responding to those is one thing, but just setting up a vase or a lemon, as trite as it sounds, it's really fun for me, and I'd like to do more of it, and it's a place to start. It's just a place to start rather than this vacuum of me by myself. You know.
How easy was it, do you think? So your classes were online, like for you to be looking at what the teachers are demonstrating to you, and for them to be looking at your work. How well do you think that translates through like the computer screen? Do you think
It worked out, and you know, there are glitches sometimes, but they know what they're looking at so well,
Yeah.
and can anticipate what it really is in life, that the feedback has been super helpful.
Okay. It's interesting. I wonder, like, as you're saying this, I guess this whole like cottage industry of people doing classes and workshops and things online just sort of popped up for them during the pandemic. Like maybe people discovered a whole new
I know, and I think
aspect
it's
of income for themselves, right?
so valuable. Besides the horror of the pandemic, I mean, there are
Yeah.
good things came out of it.
I mean, that suddenly you could be learning from someone across the world without having
Across
to go
the
there.
world.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So this woman in New York, do you still have plans to go?
Well, I am going to go with a couple students of hers who have graduated from this very rigorous program. I think that you're doing cast drawings for the first year. Maybe you can hold a paintbrush by the third year. I mean, it's very rigorous, and I wish I had time and discipline to do it. I doubt that I do, but
You said
I'm
it's
gonna-
cast drawings for the first. What is that?
well, a cast of, say, a hand or a foot,
Oh, okay.
and by observation, and then a lot of master copies and copies of. I'm acting like I know, but I really don't.
It sounds very old masters type of stuff. Yeah, where you spend
which is
ages just doing a
fertile.
hand from every angle. Right.
Which is fertile to then have the memory of what you're looking at. Because I've learned the skeleton a bit, not really.
Yeah.
Definitely not learned the muscles. And I act like I'm such a student now, but really it's just a way to get excited again and enjoy it.
And the program that she's in is called Grand Central, you said? The
Grand
school?
Central Atelier, and it's a class
Cool.
called drawing and painting program, very rigorous, and it emphasizes this thing called perceptual form, and
Okay.
turning a form away from the light. And I just appreciate how mindfully crafted the whole thing is. So I have plans to go in July in person with two really great artists, Chelsea Bard and Tyler Berry.
Okay.
And that would be fantastic to be in a room.
A tiny little class.
I imagine. I don't know. My sister says she might do it with me, but she has to be in the corner. I can't.
It's too intimate to have somebody you know that well just over your shoulder looking.
Maybe so.
Okay.
Well, I gotta find a way to leave my body.
That's something cool to look forward to. And you were saying that so you're going to take a break from commissioned work and you're working on a whole new series of pieces and you'll call it Decommissioned to work toward a show.
Maybe. I don't mean to be cheeky that way, but it's a mindful separation from.
Do you already have an idea of what like the objects and the subjects of these pieces are going to be, or are you going to wait until you do this class? Okay.
Well, no, I don't need to wait. I started thinking about it during the pandemic, and it's things like that are essential. And ways to.
You were thinking about essential and non-essential people.
Essential workers, essential things.
Yeah.
You know, I have ideas. Like to challenge myself and make myself really scrutinize an object in life and find a way to make it interesting to look at.
Do you know? Yeah. Do you feel this almost push with like? I'm looking at your still lifes, and yeah, it's like one lemon leaning against a wall or on a cloth. It's very sort of classic, still life setup. Do you feel like there's a thing for you where you want to take what would be quote unquote just a very boring, prosaic thing, and you want to just make it really beautiful and it's like a challenge for you?
Maybe so, and also embrace that. So what? If it's just a lemon in a classical.
Yeah.
And I'm signed up for another class. This must seem very extravagant, but I'm just excited about it, and signed up for another class that is nothing but master copies. I mean, I don't care. You learn.
Do you have any idea? So at this moment, sort of in Savannah, venue-wise, where would you like to be showing your work?
Well, Peter Roberts has been very good to me, and gotten to be in group shows at Location Gallery, and we'll see if I can't pull something off. I don't know that that's going to be. I don't know if I'm telling something I shouldn't, but it's not the new episode of Succession. It's not that important. If anyone knows or doesn't know, I think I'm afraid that I won't pull it off.
Oh.
So it's an idea.
Sometimes I make people say it out loud, like, what's your next thing you're going to do? Because then it's like,
You got to manifest
put it out there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to have a solo show in town.
Great. Something to look forward to. At some point, this is definitely going to happen, I'm sure.
Thank you. I hope so.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to get back a little bit just for your materials. Like, so when you work on paper, I know that in your list of materials online, that it's charcoal, and then you do these like, is it oil washes with the brush just to like make things look a little bit more liquid? What is it?
That would be acrylic wash. Or,
okay, acrylic wash.
With charcoal, and then on wood, I've used wood stain.
I was going to ask if you ever run into problems with the paper where it just is too thin or too delicate and you end up destroying things.
It's like
is that a lot?
I just commit to the 300-pound expensive stuff.
Okay.
Hot pressed, it's pretty unbeatable.
Is hot press, is that the more textured or the less textured?
Less textured.
Okay. And it usually
it's super thick. I mean.
Yeah, and it usually has that really nice deckled edge to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you're beating up the paper a lot.
I can, and when I was working kind of wet dry, that was I had to just stay my hand truly because I wanted to get in there, and then you just have mud before it's dry if you're putting it. Oh yeah, you're acquainted.
Do you think so? When you moved to doing on wood panel and canvas, was that like just for the fun of it, or was there like a problem with paper that you were trying to solve?
Framing.
Okay.
Yeah, and the size I was working. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Betsy Kane, whom I love and admire, gave me some UPO, which is something I've really enjoyed, and some liquid pencil, which is graphite with a binder.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about
goes
liquid
on
pencil.
like
Okay.
painting.
And UPO, is that really interesting paper that it's like, it's almost like the opposite of the watercolor paper you're doing, because there's sort of no surface that like materials don't really sink into it at all. They kind of just sit on the surface of it and then eventually dry. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. And so it's very forgiving.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do they bead up? I'm trying to picture this.
I haven't
Like, does
noticed
liquid
that.
make little beads and then eventually dry?
It seems to accept it enough that it will dry, will fuse and dry. But
Okay.
I haven't noticed a lot of beating up.
And it comes pretty large, right? The UPO paper?
There's a roll or a small one.
Oh, that is a good roll. Amazing.
Let's have you leave with some. I'll give you some.
Oh, so much fun. Is this huge, like, what do you call it? This thing in the corner? It almost looks like something you'd use to cut mat board. What is this huge equipment?
Oh, it's a straight edge.
Okay.
You mean the blue?
Well, the entire wall leaning up.
Oh, that is
Your surface.
an easil wall that
An easel wall.
Preston
Okay.
Orr, my favorite artist in person ever, helped me make, because you can see the walls are not good
For tacking something up. Yeah. This is okay. I'm going to try to describe it for people. It's like it's almost like an enormous bed that's leaning against the wall, and then there's a shelf so you can rest your piece and your materials on it. But it's just it's amazing.
It's 2x4s and then drywall and a seam in the middle.
Yeah.
Makes it, I guess, 2 4x8, so it's 8x16.
And then we were talking about your studio earlier a bit. So you're in this very, very large room that's sort of semi-divided that you share with Meredith Sutton, the jewelry artist. And you've been here for years, and then you learned that you're going to have to leave in a year, did you say?
Well, I think it's 6 months.
Okay.
Something like that. So, as anxious as I get about each studio transition, and there have been many, it always has worked out.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to count on that.
And
this has been just so lucky. This has truly
this
been
enormous
so lucky,
room,
and
yeah.
all thanks to Meredith for packing me in with her.
This discussion with artists over like where to work has come up a lot with people in Savannah, and we were talking about this, that it's just so interesting that there's not more, like once you get out of SCAD, it's interesting there's not more large buildings of just like lots of artists working. It's like very piecemeal. Everybody just happens to find their place, or they're in their room working around alone, and I don't know. I feel like that could be the next big thing that could crack open in Savannah, or just more conscious, formal, public opportunities for people to work in a space together. Because one thing I remember from right before I graduated from SCAD, that a professor was like, you hate the critiques now, but you'll notice once you're graduated and you're working on your own, you're professional, you really miss just being around people looking at your work and helping you as you're working through it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really weird to be isolated working. Yeah.
I can imagine a lot of self-starting that some people are fortunate to have.
Yeah. What are you mentioned sometimes that you're here really late at night and you sleep on this little sofa in here. Are you a night worker, or are you just like a 24-hour, you're just here all the time?
No, night. And it stems from, I think it's just how I do best.
Yeah.
And when I'm most alert and vigorous. And there used to be office folks on the second floor, so I'd wait till they leave at 5 and then come in and work with abandon and play whatever.
So you could be really loud.
Loud.
Yeah. Do you have a really daily routine? You have things that you do during the day and then you come at night and work?
Pretty much. Well, I first have to do all the New York Times word puzzles.
Oh, that's good.
Important.
That's how you wake up
A little bit.
your brain?
Yes.
That's a serious
It is.
morning activity.
It's a date with myself.
Are you able to get through the entire week?
Of the puzzles?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I sometimes with success, sometimes with not.
Because don't they get harder as the week goes on, right?
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. And I try to set Monday, Tuesday nights, Thursday and Friday nights. I'm here.
Okay. So your website, your last update, like your list of art shows on your website, the most recent one was 2014, which is obviously insane. So you since then had a lot. I did notice there was a part back in your history. We must have been at the same, like the annual Telfair Art Fair that they used to have out in Telfair Square. We were both in at the same time, like 2009, 2010, which is really funny that we overlapped for that. And I missed that show. That was amazing. They had this tent and they took over the whole square, and artists who were like road warriors and who were on the road, like they were coming from all over the country to do that show.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I count that as one of the most challenging things I've ever done, just to sort of stand at attention for 3 days.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I went to bed for a week after that.
I think, yeah, for most artists, you're pretty introverted. So the point where you have to talk to people all day and sell your work is you're really pushing yourself. It's like a performance.
Well, yeah, it matters to try that, or at least I find that I should here and there.
Did you ever want to do outdoor art fairs, like other than those? Did that ever become a part of your practice?
Not much. I just am so poorly organized for something like that, but I will get to do the Isle of Hope one next fall.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's
Or
great.
this fall.
That's going to be your first like pop-up kind of art fair you've done
in
in
a long time. And I also
literally
have
decades.
to say, the software, I'm told the software that supports what my website is on isn't made anymore, so I can't get in there and change it.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Which is
Time to build a whole
I'm not
website.
terribly up to date anyway. But
Well, they make it so easy now. You just have these templates and you just
I
go
gotta
in
do
and
it.
type
I gotta
things.
just
And
start over. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will.
But so in the years since, from 2014 up till now, what are some? Do you remember some other galleries that you've shown in and other like notable times you had in Savannah?
Sure. Several with location, and I always appreciate that chance and the way their shows are structured to support charities.
Yeah,
things like
that's
that.
really cool. Now their shows, Peter always sets like a theme, and then you have to like generate a new piece for that theme for that show. So what kinds of things have you been depicting for those? Because it's
I just painted over one of them. I did a T12, the thoracic vertebra, for one of his shows. And I can't remember which one, but it's something I did really enjoy. It was Atlantic Avenue for the Savannah-Poly.
Okay.
Savannah-Poly.
yeah, I can see you getting really into anatomical studies as well. I mean,
It worked out, although it's erased forever. It's under this head right there.
Oh wow.
I think commission work has taken up plenty.
Okay.
So when I say plenty, it's probably not like other people's plenty, but it's plenty for me.
Has it mostly been people, or is it people asking you to do their animals as well?
Both. I'm not proud. I had a sailboat. I've had pets. I've had a lot of horse commissions on panel.
Okay.
Not a lot, but some. And those are pretty challenging because once the wood stains down, it's over. You know, it's on birch panel, so it drinks it up, and then you really only have a couple chances before it gets just shiny.
Oh.
You know?
Can you sand that down at all?
I could. It's makes a different. The figure is lost, kind of.
Wow. And those have been on panel because the people wanted it to be a certain size?
Well, yeah, and also Jerome Temple, an artist in town, gave me a panel once that he had found in the lane. He's good at finding things, and I saw a horse in it.
Wow.
Horse, so I sort of just finished
Like in the
it.
shape of the wood texture in
wood
there, it
figure,
already
yeah.
looked horsey?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
So I just kind of finished it out, and that started me on that process of, I called it Grain Fed, that show in 2014.
That's a very cool name.
Thank you.
I like
Wow,
the
sort of
double
very
entendre.
punny.
Yeah, for the horse. and
But
the
I
wood
had
grain.
some ruminants in that show. Goats, lambs, buffalo, some ibex with a big horn.
Yeah.
And tried to find them in the grain panel.
So those are, so I know you came from West Virginia, and you said like the beginnings, the draft horses and the anvil was really inspired by things you saw there. But how did you get into these very like Western animals?
I didn't mean to. It's silly, but horns as a formal element.
Oh.
Sort of exciting, that big arc.
Yeah, like trying to depict something like the dimensionality of it going back in space.
Sure.
I would think that's a real challenge to depict that.
Very much. Yeah.
Was that before you'd taken these online classes teaching you about
Well before.
depicting form? Okay.
Yeah, well before.
So if you tried it now, you do.
I don't know. If I
You'd have all
could.
these better
You know,
techniques.
I tried hard. I really did try as much as my sort of facility allowed, and I had huge trouble rendering a sphere. I have huge trouble really, getting a cone to look like it is convex.
Yeah, I mean, these are real classic challenges. There's a reason students are tearing their hair out doing still life drawings.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a lot of glass bottles.
Glass is tough.
Glass is
Glass is tough.
And then the music you said is important. I like you're very analog. You have a huge pile of CDs.
That's right.
You have baskets of CDs. They're like from your SCAD days, right?
It's absurd,
We were listening to the
yeah.
replacements.
Oh, the replacements. They go back to, junior high school.
One thing I did want to ask you about, I kind of discovered there's this like kitchen and homeware store.
PW Short. Yeah, PW Short.
PW Short.
Fantastic.
In that design district on Whitaker. And you have your work there, which is really interesting. How did that come about?
Scott Henson invited artists to submit, and I did, and he said yes, and I'm thrilled to be there because that's an outlet that I didn't have.
Yeah.
Sort of ready to go.
It's such an interesting store. People haven't been in. On the ground floor, it's like new fun tchotchkes for cooking and entertaining to buy. And then upstairs is like, it's almost like being in Alex Raskin's antique store.
Absolutely.
And that's where your paintings are, right?
They're upstairs,
Yeah.
above the shoes, and I just really always admired what Scott does, and was thrilled to get to be there because his how he collects and curates and manages it all is very beautiful, I think.
Your work just fits right in this beautiful old building with these antiques and things that he's selling, because you do have such a classic old masters look to your work.
Well, thank you. I'm just very lucky to be there.
I didn't know how long you'd lived here, so yeah, the news that it's been since like 1995 of you starting as a student. It's a lot of history to cover.
Dinosaur, yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Mary. This is really fascinating. I love hearing about that you're a night owl. I'll think of you now, like looking out over MLK to the sounds of the road.
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
It's been amazing, and I can't wait to see. At some point, we will see a solo show of Mary's new directions out in town. It'll be beautiful.
What is it? God, well, the creek don't rise, all that. Yeah. I hope so. Thank you so much, Tamara.
Yeah, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Mary. Next up on WRUU, That Old Savannah Magic from 4 to 6 p.m. It's a variety show featuring Savannah history, radio theater, interviews, and music.
You are listening to WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with a global soul.